just give me a little background on why you just decided to be a teacher and coach in the first place?
I went to college and originally was looking at political science and maybe probably on a path to do a law degree or something like that, or maybe get into higher education. And I started. I got asked to fill in for our feeder program from my old high school and to cover a team for a weekend, and I just loved it, and it felt like it was the right thing to do. And reflecting on that experience, I thought about the positive impact that a lot of my coaches have had on me growing up, and how they had really show me the way to become a positive young man and someone to really look up to and productive person. And I thought, man, that would be a great way to be able to impact kids. I still had a love for the game and wanted to get involved in some way in that. And also, teaching, that still love the aspects of teaching, some of the subject area teaching. So it allowed me to do both. It allowed me to still do some of the self-studies and history stuff that I love doing, to be involved in the game of basketball, and also, again, impact kids in a positive way.
What did your coaches do in the past that you kind of reflect on your students today and your kids?
I really think our coaches did, or my coaches did, a great job of getting to know what motivated me. Mm-hmm. I think it was as an individual, and I look back at some of the great coaches I had and how they were able to take kid A and motivate them one way, and take kid B and motivate them another. But at the same time, they all had a standard that was common. They held us commonly to a certain standard of what we needed to reach, and they had high expectations for us, as not just on the basketball court, but off the court. And they cared about us as human beings, as people, and not just as pieces on the playing floor. So I think those were some things that I really thought were positive.
How has your teaching style or coaching style changed over the years?
I think that I look a lot more at process than actually what we're doing. So especially I look at the court, and I really think that my coaching, I tell people all the time that I learned a lot more about teaching in the classroom from having to be a coach and having to organize practices and how to manage practices and things like that. That's really helped me be a better teacher. And being a teacher is a lot easier because those pieces aren't moving around. But
yeah.
that sort of thing. But at the same time, as a coach, it's a lot easier because you could just make them do push-ups or run or something like that. If I could do that in the classroom, it'd be a lot easier sometimes. But looking at the process a lot more and not being as focused on the outcomes, and then looking at it doesn't necessarily matter the X's and O's. It's about how do we execute those, how we do those, how we learn how to do well. And that sort of thing, I think, has been something that's really changed how I do things.
What advice would you give someone who wants to get into coaching or teaching? What would you tell them? What would you tell them, or what would you tell almost your younger self? Just all the knowledge you have now.
Oh, I had conversations. I have a few players, including former players, including my older son, who want to get into coaching and teaching. I have a couple of former players who are currently coaching, and I was just talking to a colleague last night about teachers, and one thing I think that you got to be honest with them. So it's hard. It's hard. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of emotion. It's a lot of effort. So it's hard. And so for that, you have to get into for the right reasons, right? You got to get into it because you love it. You got to get into it because you love kids. You got to get into it because you want to impact people in a positive way. And you can't get into it because make it easy. You can't get into it because it's just going to be fun. You can't get into it because about yourself. It can't be about your ego and what it can bring you. It's got to be what you can bring from kids, what you can bring a school, what you can bring a whole community sometimes.
Yeah. You mentioned your sons. Did you coach both of your sons?
I'm currently coaching my youngest as a junior. My oldest is in college right now. So I coached him as well. And that was something that I didn't set out to do. It was actually something I was going to try to avoid. I was going to step down from being a head coach a long time ago, and the plan didn't quite work out. And it was something that I had a lot of conversations with other coaches who had gone through coaching their own kids about the process and about how they handled it. Talked a lot with my kids about it too, and this is something that we have to figure out how to do, and what's the best way to do this. And there's some things we've got to do, or otherwise it's not really going to work out. So it was a lot of conversations, a lot of prep to do that.
Yeah, how was that process? And kind of, you go home and then on the court, like, what was the differentiate?
It was a lot of, trying to make sure. That was a piece of advice I got from people was, you got to be really careful about not bringing practice home, not bringing all that stuff home, which is something that even as a young coach, I was told that, you leave practice, you got to make sure when you're going home to your wife and kids that you're not bringing that baggage home with you. So that was something that I think we kind of was already ingrained, and they were pretty good about, be able to walk out and say, hey, we're going to be dad here and son at home, and we're going to be coach and player at school and at work. And talked to a lot of coaches who talked about being able to control what you can control, and you can control that relationship with your kid, but you're not going to always control what other people are going to say about it. I tended to be really cautious with both my kids as far as playing time and not putting them in too early, and making sure that it was pretty obvious that they had to play. They made us better, and they needed to be on the court. And so that and part of that was to protect them. You're really aware that they're going to be a target, and whether it's the other fans or whether it's even other parents in the building or other things like that, sometimes they're going to be a target. So protect them, make sure that it's really obvious to everybody they should have the role that they have. It's not just dad taking care of them. But the advice I got some advice from a coach that had been coaching for a really, really long time, and he said, the positive relationships you have with the players, and the ups and downs, and the closeness and those emotions and those highs and that you feel with your players. He goes, they're even better with your kids. And so sharing those moments with your kids are things that you're really going to cherish and be able to look back on, and are really positive things. And so that was something I really took to heart, and I think it was definitely true with my oldest son. And as my youngest one gets playing more varsity time, I think so true with them as well.
How has that community grown in your eyes throughout all of your years of coaching?
I know that there's only been 8 people that have ever been the head basketball coach for the high school in 60-some years. So it's something that I take seriously and appreciate, and really feel like it's something that's been something that's an honor to do. And I think you look at other sports as well. We have coaches that have been here for, they stick around and they're successful. They do well. They're really supported well, both by our school administration and by our community. And it makes it a pretty special place to be.
What would you say your biggest lesson so far as a coach is?
I would say, it's not always what you do, but how you do it. And that's a big thing. And whether it's the offense or defense you run, or whether how you approach, getting things done in practice, and or even what you're doing on game day. It's how you do it is a lot more important.
Can you explain again what you guys are doing this season, and just valuing the traditions of the community of your team?
A lot of it is, we talk about how we do stuff, how we carry ourselves, how we act, how we behave, and how, I tell our basketball players, especially in basketball, you're not, people are right there, right? They're right there in the stands, and you don't have a helmet on, and people know who you are. And whether you realize it or not, when you're at the grocery store, when you're at, other places in the community, people know who you are. And we do, one of the big things that we do is we have our youth camps in the summer, and we'll have a couple hundred kids come through our camps in the summer, and pointing out to our players that, these kids know who you are, and they, you got to be really aware of what you're presenting and what you're saying about not just yourselves, but also your families and your school and your community and your basketball program too. That's something that we talk a lot about to our kids, about what they're, when they come in and be varsity basketball players, they are taking on a legacy that has been left for them, a legacy of success, and people who care about, again, the community and the school. And then, what are they going to leave when they leave? What are they leaving behind? So what are they bringing on and accepting? What are they leave behind? And how can they, honor that what they've received, and then those people that came before us, and then also, how can they improve on that, make it better, leave their own positive mark out there.
How do you handle kind of wins and losses as a coach?
You don't get into sports if you're not competitive, right? That's part of it. Is you like the idea of competing, or like the idea of the competition and playing and winning, and those are really things that drive you and things that you want to do. Right? At the same time, again, I think that again, talked about be involved with the process and how important the process is to things, and the fact that you start recognizing that why did we lose, and how can we do better, and that try to keep that focus. But also, when again, because the kids are competitive too, right? They don't want you to walk in and say, it's all right, we'll get them next time. Like, they don't want to hear that. They want to know, what do we need to do, or how can we get better, and they want to win, and so it's part of it is reminding yourself, reminding the kids to that there is something with that community, with their families, with each other. There's things that are bigger than any individual game, and the win and loss in any individual game. But at the same time, how do you continue to compete? We've had seasons where we haven't won a lot, and how do you continue to get out there and fight? And learning those lessons, I think, are really important to kids. And at the same time, we have time when you are really good, are really winning a lot. How do you continue to do that and not get lackadaisical and not get lazy? And I know that the two times that I know that I can think of that I've really, really been upset with kids after the game, it wouldn't necessarily have to do with the fact they lost. It was about how they played, and that they went out there and then were sloppy with things, and they had bad attitudes about stuff, and they didn't play together with things. And so, making sure that you, again, focus on that process, and that this is why we're not getting where I want to go, is I think the major thing. You got to really keep it focused. Thanks.
Yeah. Obviously, you played basketball yourself. How did you prepare for a game as an athlete, and how do you prepare now as a coach, and how does that differentiate?
I think the physical part is different, obviously, because I don't have to run up and down the court. So that physical side is completely different. But the mental side, we all, I think athletes and coaches as well, get a little bit, sometimes we get a little bit superstitious, and we like things to be in certain ways and that sort of thing. So having that routine, I think, is pretty key. And I remember as an athlete, I always had a pretty set routine on game days. And as a coach, I try to stay with that routine as well. And that's part of just what we do in general on game days for the players, is to having that routine, having that consistency, knowing, at this point in time, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this. And just so they know that, and that's going to ease you and help you with performing performance stuff. We've tried to, over the years, we've really tried to work on that mental side of things, and how do we prepare ourselves mentally, because we play in some games that are big crowds and lots of pressure, and so how can we go out there and perform when there's a lot of stakes on the line, or when there's a lot of people there watching you, and trying to that's something as a coach too, right? You don't want to freeze up in the moment, you don't want to have the moment be too big for you, but I think the key to that is going to be that preparation, right? And if you can prepare and feel like you are ready and prepared for it, whether as a player or a coach, you're going to be ready to rise up to that moment and be ready to accomplish those goals.
Last question for you is, how do you want to be remembered as a coach, as a person, as a dad, as a husband?
I had an assistant coach one time who had worked at the collegiate level some, and I don't know if this sounds cheesy or not. He told me one day, he goes, "You love your players more than anybody I've ever been around," and sometimes I worry about that, because am I being too soft on him? Am I not pushing him hard enough? Am I not? But I think that's one of the best compliments I've ever had as a coach. And again, coming from somebody who's been around a lot of coaches, to be told that you love your players a lot. And, that's something I hope that my forward players think, and they look back and they go, man, that guy cared about me, and he took care of me and tried to try to make me the best person I could be.